Motorola Solutions reporting stronger than expected quarterly results. The public safety and enterprise security company reported double-digit revenue growth, and it raised its full-year revenue and earnings guidance. Joining us right now in a Squawk exclusive is the CEO, Greg Brown. And Greg, good morning.
Good morning, Becky. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Let's talk about through some of these numbers. You raised your profit to a forecast to $11.40 to $11.48 earnings per share for the full year. That's up from your earlier profit expectations and the street's estimates of $11.29. What's happening? I'm guessing this is strength because of what's happening with first responder equipment, demand from cities?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the right spot at the right time. This is the second time we're raising full year top and bottom line. To your point, we do public safety and all the requisite emergency communications networks in cities, states, and countries around the world. And we also, to your point, as you mentioned, enterprise security. And what I mean by that, and what we mean by that, is we protect people, property, and places through video security and access control. And at the end of the day, Becky, we're taking and linking the portfolio that we've invested in organically and inorganically. And when you think writ large, broad public safety and security, we take those in need and link them to those who can help. And we also do automated 911 command center software, so those handling emergency dispatch, 911 call handling, can improve response time and be as productive as they can be. Our addressable market's $60 billion. With the print yesterday and the forward-looking guide, it's just a shade under 10. So we have room to run. We have a great addressable market. We're investing capital organically and inorganically, and I like the opportunity in front of us.
Greg, we have known each other for a long time. I remember when you took over at Motorola, before Motorola Solutions, before you spun that off. I mean, that was 15 years ago. And at that point, cell phones were 75% of your revenue. The Razor phone was hot, but it was just as we'd seen the advent of the iPhone. I know you thought that that was something you couldn't really compete with. You saw that early on. You spun off all of that stuff that so many people thought, wait a second, how could you give away that part of the business? This is the part of the business that you thought was the best.
Absolutely.
You started out with something like $8 billion in market cap with this new business, I think, and it's built up to about $50 billion over time.
Yeah, after the financial crisis, we were down the whole market cap of the conglomerate. Pre-breakup, went as low as $8 billion. We have an enterprise value of $55 billion. We have a strong balance sheet, a great brand. Becky, this is the best team by far I've ever had. We've done 40 acquisitions since the split and the exit of the commodity cell phone business and the low-margin wireless infrastructure business. And we are all about public safety and security and the technology ecosystem that links that critical information.
Hey, Greg, I'm just wondering if you could help me understand the extent to which the business is tied to government spending, in the sense that we've had this big push of government spending came out of the pandemic era. States and local governments got a lot of money. It seems like the tide is turning. People are concerned about deficits. People are that money that was given to the states and local governments won't be around forever. Why wouldn't I be a little bit skeptical about your outlook, given what I think is a trajectory of government spending?
It's a great question. And another variation, Steve, is we were asked yesterday on the earnings call, hey, Greg, you have this great demand. You're giving this forward-looking guidance with the Inflation Reduction Act and this kind of one-time temporary infusion. How can we be confident that you can do this over time? And the answer is the demand we're seeing is largely non-ARPA. We track the orders we get into the funnel. And last year, Steve, we think about 5%, less than 5% of the overall order volume was linked to ARPA dollars in the Inflation Reduction Act. As we track it through the first half, it's even less. State and local budgets are strong. Tax revenues are strong. The need for public safety is as critical as ever. And not just public safety, but things like border control. Things like, I heard you talk earlier today about the heat index related to jobs, Steve. Well, guess what? In natural disasters, Katrina, Hurricane Ian, and the like, a cellular infrastructure, a consumer solution's not going to cut it. People want always on, consistently reliable, always redundant, emergency communications that even if the entire infrastructure was wiped out, you still have real-time communications.
I thought I had you, Greg. Greg, I thought I had you, but you hit that one out of the park. I mean, you were like ready for that, and you didn't know that question was coming. So
I don't know any of the questions.
Greg, let me ask you one more, just about China, because China is such a huge concern these days, especially in Washington and with the business community. You've warned for a long time that you don't want to do business with China. You don't do just about any business there because of a run-in you had with a company that stole a bunch of your IP. What happened?
Well, we're the only. So Motorola was one of the first companies in China. 1986, the Galvin family, it was the right decision. You all know the story about China and the decision the country made about the entry into the WTO. And by the way, a lot of consumers and companies benefited over time. I'm a bear on China. I think you got to be clear-eyed and eyes wide open about what you do. We made the decision after we sued Huawei and we've sued Hytera. We are the only U.S. multinational company to sue two Chinese companies. We're embroiled in the 7th year of litigation with Hytera. They owe us just under $700 million. There's a court hearing on August 17th in federal court in Chicago where they owe us $49 million down payment for a royalty payment that goes into escrow. Look, there's few things people agree with in Washington from a bipartisan standpoint. We have to understand China and the risks associated with it. Do I suggest we decouple? No, I think it's impractical. Do I think we de-risk and diversify? Absolutely. We made that decision over a decade ago. No manufacturing, no software development, no product development. I don't want to run the risk of intellectual property theft or trade secret or source code. And I think that decision's paid off well.